Anyway.
Like I know that recently it came out that Spielberg's remaking Bullet,
Mhm.
and I'm like, I don't want him to. I mean, I know he's a good director. He'll do a good job on it, but is that something we want that we need?
I definitely can see.
I never saw his first movie. What was it called? That chase movie that he
The
did.
car?
Duel?
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, Duel. I
Duel,
never
yeah.
saw that.
You never saw
Oh,
that? That's a good one.
it's terrific, yeah. For a movie that was essentially a TV movie, it was extraordinarily good. But I don't know. When you get to the point, a guy like him who really was the most important person in film for 30
He could do
years.
anything he wants.
Yeah, but he gets to a point now where he's doing stuff like, why bother?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what he would do. I mean, he went from doing these blockbuster science fiction and action films to doing sort of supposedly serious films. And those, I guess, were good. But my feeling about Spielberg was that he was a great director who was working in a genre that normally didn't have great directors.
Yeah.
So that's why he really stood out. But if you're a great director who's working in with the same type of stuff that a lot of great directors have worked with over the years, at least the type of people that Hollywood normally considers great directors, you're doing Lincoln and you're doing things like that, or another version of West Side Story. And then it becomes a question of technical perfection. So seeing Guillermo del Toro get all excited because there's some scene in West Side Story where the camera follows people through a dance scene.
Right.
It's all done in one shot.
Yeah.
They're spending $100 million. Why is that such an impressive thing? I mean, wouldn't
And I'm sure there's digital. I'm sure they've done digital characters in there.
That's the other thing. Even if they fucked it up, they could fix it in post.
Yeah.
Right? But why in this day and age is that such an amazing thing? Oh, they did it all in one shot. At Broadway shows, they go out and do the whole fucking show every night.
It's all one shot. The whole
All
movie.
Yeah.
So why is that so impressive? And shouldn't the conversation be more about whether or not it was a good idea to do a new version of West Side Story, whether that was needed, whether that story really is relevant anymore? And I'm sure they have answers to all that, but those are the questions that should be asked. Not, do you have a 10-minute shot? Who cares? Does the audience care?
I think Jaws made an appearance in West Side Story.
I'd pay to see that.
Yeah.
Well, Jaws is an example of a movie that's constant cutting, right? It's all cut together. Verna Fields, the famous editor, was at her peak when she did that. And my argument is that movies are always better if you have a lot of cutting, because we don't want to see a stage production, a recording of a stage production. Can I give you my theory on this?
Go ahead.
This is when Billy will decide that he has to get some text messages.
Yeah.
The people that are keen on that long shot, the one single camera that follows, sort of like Orson Welles, what he did at the beginning of Touch of Evil, where the camera follows characters down the street, and it's all done in a single shot.
Yeah.
And they say that's
even Rope too.
And the whole movie was done. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But they say, well, that's closer to reality, right? But it isn't, because there's a thing called circadic masking. Do you know what a cicada is?
Yeah. Like the insect?
No, that's a cicada.
Cicada. Okay.
A cicada is a rapid eye movement.
Okay, yeah.
So circadic masking is what your brain does so you don't see all the stuff from one point to the other. So when your eye goes there, you don't see your eye traveling. You don't see all that blurry footage.
Yeah.
Your eye sees here and then it sees there. That's cutting. That's why movies worked. That's why we adopted that approach, because our eyes and brain work that way, right? We don't see everything in one long shot. We see everything in a series of cuts. I'm looking here, I'm looking there. Even when you're looking at somebody in the distance, even though your eyes don't have the ability to zoom in, mentally you will be zooming in. You'll be focusing on that. So it's the equivalent of a zoom in a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you see one long shot in a movie with things playing out, the camera in the back. And Spielberg did this in War of the Worlds, where he knitted all the footage together for that car. Was it the car? Oh no, actually, it's the Children of Men. Spielberg did something similar in
Yeah.
War of the Worlds. They have the camera appear to go outside the car and come inside the other side. And,
Yeah.
it's all stitched together. It's not really done as one shot, but that's not realistic. That's not the way we see the world. If you're in a car and people are shooting at you or aliens are attacking, you're not suddenly up above the car and then alongside the car and coming in the window and going out that window. That's not the way we perceive reality. The way we see reality is through a series of cuts. And that's why movies are made that way. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't like, oh, we had this Circadic masking thing, so we have to edit movies a certain way. No, it's just the way it worked out. It just seemed right.
Yeah.
And it is right because that's the way we see things. So when I see this bullshit about everything, every once in a while, like the Touch of Evil scene, it makes sense because it builds suspense. A long scene and you're wondering what's going to happen, right? The suspense builds and it works for those type of scenes. But usually it doesn't work. Usually it's just a director showing off. Look what I can do.
Yeah.
Look what he can do with $100 million and every one of the best technical people in the world working on your film.
Yeah, and all the time to do as many takes as you can.
That's
If
right.
you don't get it right the first time, we'll reset and do it again, and we do
Right.
it until we got it.
And I, if you could honestly say that as a result of that approach to filmmaking, you were making these movies that just were tremendously effective, and everybody came out of the theater bawling, crying, or cheering, then you'd say, okay, well, it was worth it. But I don't get the impression that people are reacting that way to West Side Story. People like
Probably
it.
not,
It's a good movie, I'm sure. But is it that much better than Robert Wise's version?
I think people that are watching that are fans of the original, and they're just wanting to compare it. They're not saying, hey, I'm going to watch this and it's going to be better than, no, it's going to be.
Well, it didn't look like there was any great rush of anybody going to see it because it
Yeah.
wasn't really a big hit. But
No.
I think it's already on streaming, so.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's obviously Spielberg. I don't get a chance to speak to Spielberg very often.
Yeah, I don't either.
But I would say, why don't you go back to doing smaller movies, Keep turning out smaller films that are more personal and try to get away from the blockbuster stuff because as far as I can see, he hasn't really done anything that's particularly remarkable in quite a long time.
Yeah.
I don't remember the last really good movie that he made as far as...
I mean, I didn't mind his World of Worlds. No, I thought it was.
Catch Me If You Can is pretty good.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah.
I liked what was it, Super 8? I liked that one.
Well, did he direct that or just produce that?
I'm not sure if he.
I think that was
directed it
J.J.
or not.
Abrams.
Maybe,
Yeah, he
maybe,
produced
maybe.
it. He
Yeah, okay, he just
produced
produced it. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Then.
Yeah, and he's always been producing stuff. I mean, he produced
Yeah.
Gremlins and he produced Goonies and what else? He produced
He
Poltergeist.
supposedly directed Poltergeist.
Yeah.
Yes, well, that's an interesting debate. Tobe Hooper, I guess, felt pretty strongly that he was being, I don't know, denigrated when people said it was actually Spielberg that had
Yeah.
directed it. But I guess it's sort of like a Howard Hawks thing, the argument about Howard Hawks, The Thing from Another World,
Mm-hmm.
that the guy who directed it really just, it was actually Howard Hawks that was directing it, not that guy.
Yeah.
And he denied that. The people who worked on the film denied it. But I guess if you have a really famous, powerful producer working on the film, you're going to get that. Though it didn't work. It didn't happen with William Castle.
Right. Yeah.
Rosemary's Baby. Nobody ever said William Castle directed Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah,
We just
they
like to
knew
imagine
it wasn't
that he
William
did.
Castle.
Yeah.
It didn't look too much like a typical William Castle one.